record. All right, so prescriptive proverb is more than what simply what the life is. It seeks to characterize an attitude or an action in order to influence behavior. That means this is telling us we need to do something. There are there are three types of prescriptive proverb. When we talk about prescription, remember the word prescribing. Usually that word is used for by doctors. Doctors prescribe medicine, a medicine that we need to use it, right? We need to follow it. So that's what the word prescription comes. So there are three types of prescriptive proverb. Number one is that prescriptive proverb that allows for exception is a generalization, right? Maybe there are sometimes this type of proverb allows for exception, right? And that exception is some kind of generalization. Let's look at those two types. For example, this is something that we looked at already. Some proverbs allow for limitations in various circumstances. The example we looked at earlier in chapter 26, verse 4 and 5, right? That allows for limitations in certain circumstances. What does that tell? Let's look at maybe that verse. Maybe you may not recall the passage that we read. It is kind of contradictory verse, kind of verse that maybe seems to be contradictory, right? So let's look at that verse one more time.
Do not answer a fool according to his folly, or you yourself will be just like him. Answer a fool according to his folly, or he will be wise in his own words.
Okay, so looking at that two verses, do not answer a fool, right, according to his folly. That is one. And the other one says, answer a fool, right? Answer a fool. So how do we interpret that one? 4 and 5, that two verses. How do we explain? How do we explain those two verses? Verse 4 and 5. One says, do not answer a fool according to his folly. Second one says, answer a fool according to his folly. So how do we interpret that one?
Oh, this is cut.
Anyone?
This is not cut. This is the right, correct? So cut.
Anyone? All right. Let me give you a clue here. The clue is written here. Some proverbs allow for limitations in various circumstances. Does this clue give you? Does this word give you any clue?
Sometimes you need to answer, and sometimes you need to not answer. Ignore.
Yes, right. So this is prescriptive proverb, but it depends on circumstances. Right? There are times you can answer, you should not answer a fool, and there are times you should answer as a fool. All right? So it depends upon the circumstances. For example, another one. Wise planning with the proper advice is praised in 1522. However, it is balanced in 1921. Let's look at 1522 now. 1522. 1522.
Plans fail for lack of counsel, but with many advisors, they succeed.
Yes. So that means with proper advice, if you make plan, yes, that is good. It will succeed. So what do we understand? Yes, wise planning with the proper advice is praised, right? So planning is a wise thing to do. It's a part of wisdom. We all plan, right? Like even maybe having a class today is being planned, right? We plan everything. It's a wise thing to do. But look at the next verse, 1921. 1921. Let's look at that one.
Many are the plans in a person's heart, but it is the Lord's purpose that prevails.
All right. So how do you justify these two passages? Now you have these two verses. Is verse
In Matthew,
go ahead.
it says that when you build a house,
Yeah,
you plan.
right. God in the gospel, yes.
So the basis is God asks us to plan, and without planning, if you do, you will end up foolish.
Okay, so it is okay to plan. It is right to plan. It is wise to plan. It is good to plan. Yeah, right. We all agree, right? Anybody has got any disagreement? All right, I don't think. Okay. Now, how about 19 verse 21? What does that says? Like, many are the plans in man's heart, but the Lord's purpose, it is the Lord's purpose that prevails. Hmm? How do you justify this one now?
Everything is controlled by God. Sovereign will of God will always prevail.
Okay. Yeah.
Even if anything goes wrong, then also we'll say it is in the plan of God.
Okay. All right. Anybody else wants to comment? How do you justify, like, how do you put these two verses in balance? Anybody?
Planning is required. Planning
Okay.
is prescribed.
Sure.
But fulfillment of the plan is in the Lord's hand, and it should be in accordance with His purposes.
Very good.
Even though if it is according to His purposes, still it may not come to pass unless and until He makes it happen.
Okay. Well, let's clarify. Let me put it straight a little more. Yes, we need to plan, and the planning should be according to God's word, like according to the instruction that are, instruction should be governed by God's word. But then the other side is, it doesn't mean that everything we will plan will succeed, right? It doesn't mean. Okay. Now let's look at this verse also here. This is talking about children. Chapter 22, verse 15. Chapter 22, verse 15. Can we read?
Folly is bound up in the heart of a child, but the rod of discipline will drive it far away.
Yeah, I like that one. That is very clear. Don't trust too much your children, right? Why? Because in the Bible it says it is bound up in the folly is bound up in the heart of a child, right? It is folly is there. They don't know how, they cannot think. They overreact. They are oftentimes they don't look at the consequences. They usually are foolish. Most of the children are foolish. You'll see very, very few who are wise. But it says raw, that verse actually asking us to use what? What will drive it far from him?
Discipline.
Yeah, rod of discipline. Rod of discipline.
Rod of discipline.
Right? It is, of course, not only here, there are many places Bible says parents should use rod to discipline, right? For your children, rod is necessary. All right, let's look at verse 6. Let's look at verse 6. 22 verse 6.
Start children off on the way they should go. and even when they are old, they will not turn from it.
Okay. All right. I said generalization. Now I'm bringing this one here, this verse here. Is it an absolute truth? Or I mean, is it an absolute, or I would say, train up, we always use this verse, right? Train up a child in the way he should go. When he is old, he will not turn away from it. Depart from it. Yes, we use. Is it always the same? Is
Not
it?
at all. Not at all.
Yeah. If that is the case, you will not see this many rebellious children from in a pastor's house. You see, right? Sometimes this happen, right? You want to train your children because maybe there are some believing families that train their child so much. They teach verses. They ask them to read books, Bible. They teach them, read them stories, and train all the things. And these children, and when they go out and they want to try new things, and they go a different way.
These verses are very clear now, Pastor. Earlier it was not very clear.
Yeah.
Now it is very clear
Yeah,
as
so-
far as children are concerned.
Yes. So what are we saying? Generalization. It is generally, that is right, but it's not all the time. Right? Yeah, that is what we need to see here. Okay.
But this principle, will it be applicable to the entire Bible? Because why we will apply only for Proverbs?
No, this is applied to not only proverb, everywhere.
Ah,
This gives
so-
us the hint, train up a
So-
child.
Everything recorded may not be taken, should not be taken as a prescriptive.
So what we are saying, there is certain things are to be learned. You looked at what kind of book it is. For example, historical books. Historical books are not prescriptive. It is descriptive, right? I'm talking about the Old Testament. Do we preach from it? We do. There is a mechanism that we can do. Same way, Book of Acts. But remember, when you read an epistle is asking the church to do certain things.
Yes.
So that is completely different. So
Yes.
as we learn now we get the idea, all right, what are we looking at? And how should we understand all these books?
Yes.
Okay?
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, very good. All right, let's look at other proverb generalization because they are bound to the dispensation of law. Sometime we need to look at that as well. The Old Testament, the Mosaic law, in that time that proverb is applicable. For example, here is a word. Look at this. Proverb 10:22. Blessing of the Lord brings wealth, and he adds no trouble to it. How are you going to interpret that one today? Now, if you are a prosperity preacher, this is a good word, right? Yeah. If you are a prosperity preacher, this is a good word. Blessing of the Lord brings wealth. That means if you are wealthy, you are blessed. He adds no trouble to it. Is that the way blessing is marked in the New Testament? For example, let's look at Job. Look at the blessing of Job, how his blessing was marked. How the blessing of Job was marked. It was measured by how many cattle, how many donkeys or camels, what he has, right? Look at that. That is the sign. So in the Old Testament, all of them, you look at Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph, all of them, if you look at, they are blessed, and we look at their wealth. And maybe if you are into a prosperity gospel, you might go into all this Old Testament and say, if you trust in Jesus, you will be blessed like Job, you will be blessed like Abraham. That may be the sermon. Is it applicable to the New Testament? New Testament believers,
No.
If not, why? Or any examples?
The disciples weren't, none of the disciples were wealthy or
Yes.
given wealth at any time.
No.
Without scrap in their pocket, they are asked to go.
Yes. Look at the apostles now. Right? Jesus' apostles. What wealth they had. Finally, following Jesus, what did they get? What did they get? What these apostles received?
Persecution for everything.
Yes. They all became what? Martyrs, right? Except John, right? That's what in the New Testament. And when Jesus came, Jesus said, if I am persecuted this way, my followers, what are you going to get? Right? So understand these differences, right? Blessing of wealth were promised to the obedient Israelite in Deuteronomy 28. Yes. But this type of promise is not made to the believers in the New Testament. It's not made. It's not for us. So we need to learn, understand what is Old Testament, what is New Testament. At times, generalization may even be limited to the dispensation of law. Yes. This is generalization sometimes. For example, this Proverbs chapter 10, verse 30. It is even limited to the dispensation of law, and sometimes there is limitation in this. Look at this one. The righteous will never be uprooted, but the wicked will not. Okay, righteous will never be uprooted. The wicked will not remain in the land. Huh? Okay, will not be uprooted. Is it? Look at that text says righteous will not be uprooted. Now, what about Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Daniel? Were they uprooted? So even these verses, they are kind of generalization even in the dispensation of the law. This is not applicable in all the circumstances, friends. Even it is not applicable to all the circumstances. It is generally right. When they were in the land, Israel had their own land. They would never been uprooted. But it is not without exception. So I'm saying even in the dispensation of law, there was generalization. So that's what we are saying. Generally true, not always true. Right? That is what generalization. Now coming back to the prescriptive proverb again, the second one, moral absolute, right? Moral absolute. 1 second. I need to maybe open the door. 1 second. I'll be back 1 minute. Okay, sorry about this. You need to forgive me as maybe some people coming in between this week. So, all right. So let's continue. Second in the prescriptive, known as that has no exceptions at all. And this is simply moral absolute truth. No exemptions. All right. No exception. This is absolutely need to be followed. There will not be any exceptions. What is this? Look at that. We have, for example, this is a very famous proverb. What is that? 11 verse 1. The Lord hates dishonest scales, but accurate weights are his delight. Right? We know this one. If you have read proverb, you will see this, right? Very famous one. I still remember this is one in my language I learned in my childhood. memorized this one. So I still know this verse. Another one, another example is 14:31. He who oppresses the poor shows contempt for the maker. Yeah. If you are oppressing the poor, maybe, see here, our world will say oppressing the poor, this is against social justice. That is what everyone will say. Remember, all the socialism, Marxism, all say oppressed, oppressor and oppressed, right? You see that dichotomy, and they will say oppress the poor. It is social injustice. That's what they would say. But that's not the way Bible says. Bible says he shows contempt for their maker. That means you have someone working for you, right? And you are trying to use him. Oh no, I'm saying abuse that poor. You are showing contempt for thy maker. But whoever is kind to the needy honors God. So these are absolute truth, has no exemption at all. You cannot oppress the poor. You need to show kindness. This is absolute truth. And another one, instruction material in Proverbs 5 against adultery, maintaining proper marital relationship is absolutely true, moral absolute, right? Marital faithfulness absolutely has to be followed, right? So these are all what? The second types of prescriptive truth. So please learn, number one, we looked at exceptions are there, like generally true proverb. They are prescribed, they're generally true, but not always, right? There are exemptions. Second one, moral absolute. That means always true. There is no exemptions at all. Third category is this is also moral absolute, but a little bit of generalization is there, right? For example, Proverbs chapter 3, verse 1 to 2 is an exhortation to honor one's father with a promise of long life and peace. Let's look at that one. Proverbs 3, verse 1 to 2. Proverbs 3, verses 1 to 2. Can we read? Anyone, please? Okay. All right, I'll read. My son, do not forget my teaching, but keep my commandments in your heart. Look at the verse 2. For they will prolong your life many years and bring you prosperity. All right. So you obey your parents, that will give you promise what? Long life and peace, prosperity. So, yeah, how should you understand? Command to honor one's parents is a moral absolute, right? Because this is part of the 10 commandments, right? But promise of life, about life, is only generalization for Jesus Christ was the embodiment of this honor to his earthly parents, yet he was crucified in his early 30s. You see? Right? So what does that mean? God in his sovereignty may take an exception as in case of Jesus. So yes, honoring your parents is, yes, this is a moral absolute. And God provides a long life. Yes, this is also, but understand it comes as a part of generalization. It can be true in most cases, but not necessary in all cases. And we have the classic example of Jesus Christ who did that, right? He honored his earthly parents, Joseph and Mary, but still he was crucified, murdered. So that is something for us to learn, friends. All right, so that is what about prescriptive proverb. All right, so this is something we need to really understand as we interpret Proverbs. All right, so rest of the outlines are given there for you need to look at. Please go through it, like numbers, like 6 plus 1, those kind of things given there. You can look at all these part of the outline. All right, that's it. We will for today.